Welcome back to Prof E Plays. I'm Prof E, and we are picking up again with Cepheus Universal. We are in some number of episodes. I don't remember which one. Like five or six, I don't know. But in any case, remember what we have been doing here. I'm using the Gemulator, right? Available, I think, on a pay-as-you-want basis, or perhaps for free. I don't recall. On Drive-Thru RPG. Linked in the description below. So we're using this as our solo engine, pushing things forward, and we are playing with Cepheus Universal being something that I purchased. I think it was not outrageously expensive when I bought it. I think I managed to get it on sale. I think it normally runs $20, something along those lines. Again, Drive-Thru RPG for the PDF. So where we are at this point, right? So we have our party of three. Genie, who is formerly in fact, a space cop, where we have Lionel, who is kind of a weird mishmash in terms of his abilities, um, kind of part medic, part computer hacker, or something like that. He also has some rousing abilities, some ability to drive. It's kind of a weird combination of things here. I'm not exactly sure he got the experiences that he got. But in any case, then we have Vince Clark being our former spacer, so he was effectively a Marine or in the Navy. That is the Galactic Navy. So he is the one with the piloting skill. Now we haven't really needed a pilot because we are all on one world that is the world of Lanor. If I recall, yes, Lanor. Right, so we're in the world of Lanor, and the adventure that we are embarking on, just to remind you, is that we have learned that there is going to be an assassination. Specifically, a person by the name of Amy Haney, right, who is the leader of, the Servants of Dez is the name of this faction. It's a charitable group here, and it is something that provides a great deal of hope here. And we have a problem that some of the criminal organizations on this planet don't particularly like, that people don't have to depend on them, right, for their material well-being. So there is a plan by the Sons of Akshani to get rid of her, right, to take her out. That's the plan. And so we have stumbled upon this, and we've decided we're going to do something about it. The authorities don't seem to be particularly interested or necessarily competent to act about this. One thing that we learned is that, in fact, the assassination is going to probably take place in City Hall, where she is going to be on Friday. And when we went into City Hall, we found out that um, the security there is a bit lax. It might actually be kind of easy to pull off this type of attempt. And in fact, we found out that there's a reputation for people being killed in City Hall. Yeah. So that is the state of things in Lenore City on the planet of Lenore. So that's the issue that we have. So we've been trying to get more information, more details, so that we can actually do something to try to offset this plan. But we've kind of hit a wall here with all of the attempts we have, right? So we've been going to high class restaurants, seeing if we can hear some rumors, anything potentially useful. Nothing really about the assassination. We went and we in fact tried to infiltrate the Sons of Akshani to see whether we could hop in on the ground level and maybe get some information that way. Also, I mean, effectively, the guards at the headquarters door just kind of laughed us off and we left. So the next step I thought would make sense would be for us to break in to the headquarters. We are at this point on Monday night at 9 o'clock p.m., so we're kind of feeling a little bit of a time crunch. It would make sense for us to try to break in at this point, I believe. Except, as I was thinking about this earlier today, one thing I realized is that none of our trio have the skill set to do this and pull it off, right? So, just to give you an idea of the skills that we have. Okay, right. So first, flipping through here, we have Jeannie Alexander. So, Jeannie Alexander's abilities. She is not particularly skilled. She's pretty young, actually. So, she's kind of the de facto leader, despite the fact that she's younger than either of her compatriots, I believe, or at least of an age. Okay. Right. Uh, so she was not actually an agent for very long, and she acquired a level of investigate, a level of gun combat, and a level of heavy weapons. So she's good in combat, right? But not particularly useful if you're trying to break and enter. Remember, the investigate skill isn't really about like breaking and entering, that type of thing. Instead, it's more like doing the scientific investigation, research, this sort of thing. Now, we did use that in kind of a more calm setting and trying to case what City Hall looked like in terms of its vulnerabilities. So I decided to let her use investigate rather than security for that purpose, even though I think security probably would have been a better match. When we're talking about break in, investigate definitely does not fit. Now, we do have the robot that belongs to Lionel, but again, it is something that is very technically oriented. It's more about electronics, mechanical engineering, these types of things. It really is not designed for recon, which I think is mostly what we're dealing with here. Security to get in, and then recon to actually find something out while we're there. It doesn't have any of those abilities. Um, it does have multispectral vision, I guess, which could be kind of helpful, but not super helpful. Then we have Lionel with his kind of mysterious background, a smattering of gunnery, which would be good if they're on a spaceship firing at things. That's really what that skill is. Uh, he has computer, medical, vac suit, leader, vehicle, and carousing. Nothing that's going to help you break into a building at nighttime. And then Vince, being our pilot, has vac suit, pilot navigation, comms, ground vehicle, and bribery. I mean, bribery we tried but failed. Um, it's none of this is going to help is really what it comes down to. So what I think would actually be a better next step, rather than going immediately to try to break in, I think they actually need a fourth member of their party, somebody who is more oriented toward the breaking and entering type of thing. Right? So somebody that has some recon skill, has some abilities when it comes to security and the like. So I think that's what we're actually going to do. Right. So our goal here, I'm changing the next scene. So we're on scene number 5. My expected scene is this. So it is 9 o'clock p.m. So I don't think that we're going to have time to both recruit somebody and also get there and break into night. I just don't think that's going to happen. So instead, what I'm going to do is have the expected scene for tonight be let's recruit a rogue. And it makes some degree of sense is what we want to do. Okay, so that is the expected scene. Now, what actually happens? So here again, we break out the gemulator. The gemulator gives us a simple instruction here at this point, and that is you roll. So our previous scene where we were carousing for information, the goal being to gather information about the assassination plan, we failed at that. That in turn is going to have an impact on the roll that we're making right now. Right, so I have right here, I also have several copies of this various places, but it's a scene transition, a table, see right there. Okay. And the way this works is that I roll a D100, and then I'm going to, because I failed in the previous scene, I add a plus 10 to this. So here's my D100. See if I can find where there it is. All right, so 34. A 34 indicates a positive replacement. Right, so what is a positive replacement? A replacement is that we completely replace the expected scene, and we need a focus. Okay, so this whole recruiting a rogue, that's not going to happen. We're replacing it with something else. What's the focus? This is another D100 roll, but it's without any shift involved. Okay, I rolled off the screen. So 72. 72 tells us it's the scene goal. Okay, so it's a positive replacement. So we were trying to recruit a rogue. The that was the expected scene of what we were going to do, and the goal was to recruit a rogue. So now this is okay. Is it the goal that changes? Hmm. Well, I don't think that that makes sense. Because okay, here's the example they give. Right, so the expected scene was to meet a friend in the tavern. The transition was a negative replacement. That is a character, and they rolled this friend on their character list, right? And they found the friend's corpse outside the tavern. So the expected scene could not happen because of this negative thing that happened. So they're obviously not going to be meeting their friend in the tavern because it turns out that their friend is dead outside the tavern. So we need something similar here. So our goal here was to go and recruit a rogue. So what would prevent that from happening, but would nonetheless be positive? I mean, it makes sense to me if a rogue recruits them. Right, so I think that that might be what happens here. That'd certainly be positive because it suggests we're not going to have to pay this person. That's good. Um, so I like that idea. I like that idea a lot. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. So our scene transition is a positive replacement. Now so I think what is going to happen here in terms of the scene goal. Okay, so we are going to get recruited by a rogue. So it just got flipped in a way. We might end up getting paid. Who knows? But maybe we can do some negotiation, see if possibly that something might happen. So where is this going to happen? Well, sensibly, we were going to head toward. I think it makes sense that this is probably going to happen in the same location that we otherwise would have been, right? So I'm imagining that we're going into like a bar, cantina, something like that, where we would go and potentially hire somebody like this, right? So I think the location is going to be some kind of cantina or bar. Someplace a little bit lower class than what was it? It was Laverne's we were at the previous scene, right? So we're stepping down a bit from there, and our scene goal here, I think, may be to negotiate a good deal. I'm not sure that's going to happen, but maybe, maybe. Okay, all right. So here's what I'm thinking. So I've already, because like I said, I started rethinking this earlier. I I made a new character. Uh, their name is Forrest Lucas. Right, so this is somebody who is in fact a rogue by career, um, not particularly high level, right, but nonetheless has some abilities regarding things like streetwise security, gun combat, forgery, demolitions. Also has some points in leader and recon. So this is somebody who's going to be helpful to us. They also have a great deal of equipment that's going to be useful as well for this purpose. Which that's something I was looking and I have not, not equipped my party very well. But I mean that's something maybe that's what they're gonna do tomorrow. They'll spend the day shopping. That's something that I would do off camera because just watching somebody else pick equipment is something I personally find painful, so I certainly would not impose that on you. All right, so in any case, here's what we're gonna do. So I imagine like our trio, yes, we have Lionel, Vince, and Jeannie, have all gone to this. What do I want to call this cantina? Pull out a couple of my Game Master's Apprentice cards, and this is a trick for if you want unusual names. So you take a couple of Game Master Apprentice cards or any kind of cards that you can use these Magic the Gathering cards, whatever. Anything that might have a name on it, right? So right here, say we have Garth and Owen. So I'm going to put those two together. So we have Garow. There we go. So it's Garow's Tavern. And are we in fact meeting in a tavern? Sure, why not? Right. Okay, so it's Garow's Tavern, which I'm going to add to our location list because this is someplace we might end up ending up at again. Right, so we have Laverne's Restaurant as the high class place, Garow's Tavern as someplace relatively low class. All right, so we are there, right? We are kind of keeping an eye on the crowd, seeing if we can spot somebody that is going to be helpful to us. But as we noticed, none of our characters have this ability. So totally out of the blue, right? It, it is puzzling to us that this person just shows up right at our table. Or I'm imagining very much like you know like a Mos Eisley kind of cantina, that kind of thing, right? Where we have like we're all kind of sitting at the booth there. Okay. Um, with Obi-Wan and Luke and all this, but it's not them. Instead, it is Jeannie and Lionel and Vince. Right? All of them here. It is Vince. Start doubting my own character names. Okay. Vince. Yes. Okay. So we're all sitting here right around this table. Um, and then this person comes up. This person isn't particularly tall. They're about 5'9", 175 centimeters. like their build is somewhat normal. It's when I rolled it up, it's 176 pounds, right? So built actually very very similar to me, just slightly taller, slightly lighter. Um, it's so Forrest Lucas shows up. He's accessorized in some notable way. I'm thinking this accessory because when I rolled this up, something notable as an accessory. I'm thinking maybe something like, do I want to give him glasses? Sure, let's give him glasses. Like the like chunky glasses, not like mine. So I'm marking that down. Chunky glasses. Right. Okay, so this is what our rogue looks like. Right? It's a nerdy looking rogue. Why not? Why not? Rogues don't all have to be Han Solo. That's what I'm saying. Okay. All right. So chunky glasses and it just shows up at our table. And what I'm imagining here is that as the conversation goes on, I mean, we get some bland pleasantries out of the way. Right? It's very clear, right, that I think that okay, let's let's not just declare this. Let's check the oracle. Right? So what I'm thinking is happening here is that, okay, no, I think I have a better place to get the oracle. A reference sheet from here. If I can find where it is. I mumbled myself. There it is. Okay, here's my quick reference page. Let me pop that out of my binder. Okay. Right, so what I'm thinking, nope, that page does not, in fact, have the oracle on it. It is in the booklet. Goodness, Professor. All right. So in the booklet here, we do have a. There it is. There's the oracle. It's been too long since I've recorded. That's one thing. Like I do record these things ahead of time. I think this is going to drop probably like 3 weeks from today or something like that. In any case, maybe even pushing toward 4. Um, in any case, so there are sometimes odd gaps, or sometimes it seems like I know exactly what happened last session. That's because sometimes I do them back to back, and sometimes I have no clue what happened because sometimes there's a big gap, and that's where we are today. Right, don't look behind the curtain. Okay. All right. So in any case, so I have a couple questions about Forrest, which I have not determined when I did character creation for him. I did do character creation. He has a full character sheet, everything like that. Right there he is. Right. In any case, um, but I do have a couple questions about him. Right. So one question. Now he has kind of a grim, quiet demeanor. Right. He like the description of the psychological profile was that he lets his actions speak for themselves, right? So he doesn't really feel a lot of need to defend himself. So the first thing that I'm wondering about him is, has he like taken notice of our people? Now I think because he is literally approaching them in this bar for something that will be relevant to what they are trying to do anyway, I think it's very likely that the answer is yes. So, in fact, it turns out very likely is one of my options for the oracle. So, I'm going to do that. It's a very likely. Roll the d100, and what have we got? I got 25. Oh, very likely 25 is a yes, but. Okay, so what is the but related to? Well, I can roll a d10. So the focus of the but is 2. Okay, two, but quest giver. So the quest giver in this case was just kind of this accidental thing that we found out about it, right? So I think it might be similar, right, in that he didn't seek us out, right? So he wasn't intentionally looking for this, but he did happen to figure out what we were doing. Right? So I think that's it. Is that yes, he's been keeping an eye on us, but I'm going to say not for very long. And also, I mean, maybe he just noticed us asking questions at Laverne's in previous scene. I mean, it could be something that recent, which actually I kind of like that idea, right? So then it's not like he's bugged our hotel room or something like that, but he did notice and he managed to figure out what we were trying to do, at least who we were worried about, that kind of thing. And this does somewhat align with his own personal goals. We don't know exactly what those goals are at this point, but we do know that he has some kind of interest in what we are doing. All right. So the next thing I'm interested in about him is so you have oh yes. So we have these other factions. Right. So on this planet, I have defined four factions. There are the peacekeepers, which is the official law enforcement, which we have figured out are basically incompetent. That's not the way they're statted out as far as that goes, but story wise, it seems like at the very least they're not very interested in this type of crime, the Association of Major Charitable Workers. Right? We have the charity itself, right? That would be the Servants of Des. Right? Then we have two different criminal organizations. We have the Sons of Okshani being who's planning to carry out this assassination, and then we also have the I believe Pandorans is what I named them. So the Pandorans are are kind of a maybe somewhat slightly highly developed street gang of sorts, right? They're not particularly organized. They're not like I'm imagining the Sons of Akshani being very much along kind of mafia lines, so very hierarchical and structured in the way that it approaches things. Where I'm imagining instead the Pandorans have more of a cell structure, where they're kind of a loose organization. They have a lot of manpower, they're basically everywhere, but at the same time, they don't have a lot of leadership here, right? So you're going to run into them a lot, but they won't necessarily be very effective at targeting people. They have lots of information, but that information doesn't necessarily flow very well within the organization. They have lots of manpower, but it's kind of hard for them to organize it. So that's what I'm imagining kind of the way that this thing is structured. So the question is, he is a rogue. Now, if he is interested in doing some kind of harm to the Sons of Akshani, which is obvious that we are trying to get information about them, that is what drew him to us, then he is not going to be so interested, I don't think, in um what do I want to say? He's not going to be interested in that if he is one of the Sons of Okshani, unless he's planning to betray us or something like that. So at the very least, he's not going to reveal that. That's the case. So I'm thinking no, he's probably not part of the Sons of Okshani, but maybe he is a Pandoran. And that would be relatively easy to weave into the narrative. Because the Pandorans, by the way that I've structured them, they're willing to basically like do the grunt work for the Sons of Akshani, but they're not part of it. They do not want to join this organization. The Sons of Akshani, on the other hand, kind of see the Pandorans as kind of a young upstart rival that they really don't want to empower very much. They're happy to use them occasionally as it proves cheap and efficient to do, but they're not so interested in giving them information or power. Right? So what I'm imagining here is that it's perfectly possible, given the loose structure of the Pandorans, that somebody like this person for Forrest, that somebody like Forrest might possibly be interested in striking some kind of blow. If he is a loyal Pandoran and wants to see them rise and realizes the Sons of Akshani are just going to be in the way, he might possibly want to try to get something that could provide the Pandorans, or at least him, right, some kind of advantage over Sons of Okshani. And information of any kind, but certainly information of this kind, would be helpful. So that's a question, right? Is Forrest, so with all of that background, right, is Forrest a Pandoran or not? Now, I don't have a good sense here. Now, when I look at his background, so just some things about him. He's not from this world. He's from a somewhat higher tech world. That's it's tech level 13. I forget what Lanor is. Let me look it up real quick. Lanor is just it's just a tech level 10, right? So he's from a little bit higher tech world than this one. So this is not his home. His parents abandoned him and went into hiding. I suspect they might have been criminals or something like that. I don't know the details on that. So he was raised in a state orphanage. He has two siblings as well. One where it's just kind of a normal sibling relationship. Another one who really looks up to him. In terms of life events, he's had a very tragic life. He's in fact had three tragedies out of the five life events that I rolled. He was falsely accused of something. I don't know the details. We may learn that as we get to know him more. He was responsible for some kind of tragedy, and he also had some kind of psychological trauma. I'm imagining these last two might possibly be attached to each other. And also, I wouldn't be surprised if the psychological trauma has something to do with why he is somewhat more reserved, grim, and I almost want to say stoic, but grim and quiet in terms of his psych evaluation. But he left the home world mostly because he wanted to get a good income, and that is what he's hoping to find here. So that's his background. So the question is someone with this type of background likely to be attached with the Pandorans? I wouldn't be surprised by that. So I think that I'm going to say, in terms of our likelihood, I think it's a little bit better than 50-50. I'm going to say it's likely, but not very likely. We got 65. Now, 65 indicates under likely, it's a yes. Yes with no modifiers. So it's an unmodified yes. That is, yes, he is with the Pandorans. And that would confirm for me that he is, in effect, a loyal Pandoran trying to advance their cause against the Sons of Akshani. So this is something that could have an impact potentially on the relationship between these two factions if we manage to pull things off, or if we don't. As long as what we do gets discovered, there's a potential change in how this relationship looks between those two factions. Right. So, but remember here, our goal. So we had this conversation. We learned this stuff. That we learned that he, and I imagine he would be willing to share the fact that he is with Pandorans and is interested, right, here in what we've been doing and wants to know what we know. And I don't see any reason that we would necessarily hold back very much. I think that he's probably going to do reasonably well winning our trust. This is really me really, really hating those tavern conversations where you're trying to get a party together and they all resist it. That's not happening here. They're not resisting it. They are, in fact, fairly free, right, with the information they have. After all, well, what's the possibility here, right? So one possibility is that he is, in fact, one of the sons of Akshani. That is potentially dangerous. But them saying we know this information, I mean, they tried to join, right? So I think that they have a pretty good plausible deniability here. Another possibility is that he's a peacekeeper, in which case, okay, fine. We know that they don't care, right? So I don't think that they're going to try to hide this information, right? So him then being a Pandoran is interested in the information and interested in using this information. So he is very happy to help them break in to the um, the headquarters. So I think that would be their plan for the next scene after we have a little shopping trip, right? So I'm thinking our next scene, let me just jot this down, is going to be expected. I'm just writing down our expected scene. It's not going to happen right now because we've spent plenty of time here. So recruit a rogue was the expected scene. That didn't happen. So instead, we're trying to negotiate a deal. I haven't gotten to that part yet. But our next scene that is expected is the break-in. Break-in to Sons of Akshani headquarters. That's what we're going to want to do next time. So in the meantime, the question is, can we negotiate with him? Now, this process of negotiation, I know that there's a skill for that. Let me double check the skill list. I don't remember off the top of my head what the skill is. Okay. I don't have a skill list here. Yeah, I'm still learning some of this. That's one thing. I like this game. Um, oh, there it is. Skill descriptions. So negotiation, I believe. Okay, so I think broker is probably the best here. Now, technically, it's normally for things like buying and selling commercial goods, haggling, bartering, and so forth. The so forth suggests to me that broker would be a reasonable um, skill, right, for us to be involved with here. It does not make sense to me. Like administration, not really. That's more like navigating legal systems and bureaucracies. Um, yeah, yeah, I think that the best we have here is broker, and none of us, including him, right, have broker. Right, so I think we're just going to do an opposed roll here, right? So my thought is this, right? Now, really, the question is not whether there's going to be some kind of deal. The question is what that deal is going to look like. So I'm going to roll. Um, Actually, I'm just going to roll twice. Right, so the first roll is going to indicate what um, kind of the joint skill of our trio. The other is going to indicate the skill of Forest. And we're just going to compare the two. So whichever is higher gets kind of the better deal here. So the question is, or kind of, we're trying to figure out who needs whom. It's kind of the question and framing of this conversation. So let's go ahead and roll this. Right. So my first conversation or this is for the party. Party rolls an 8. There it is. And then Forest Forest rolls a 4, right? So it looks like the party does, in fact, manage to negotiate for a reasonable deal here. So basically, the way that this conversation goes, right, is that the party does manage to convince Forrest that this isn't something that he can really do alone, that they have some information, some skills that are going to be useful down the line. He, after all, just learned about them. They do know some stuff that he doesn't know. Like one thing that didn't come up was some of the corruption involved with Amy Haney, for example. Um, so, so I think that that's the way this negotiation ends up going. So it does slightly favor the um, the party or the trio. So the question is, right? Is he going to like pay them or something like that? I'm trying to think about what he can provide to them that might possibly be worthwhile. So I think providing equipment might make sense. Right. So, like him providing cash doesn't make a lot of sense because in part the Pandorans are not wealthy, right? So he doesn't have like this huge resource backing. What he does have is the ability to get equipment. So I think it makes sense that he is going to equip them. So that's what I'm thinking is going to happen. So it's not a shopping trip. Well, I guess it kind of is, right? Except that Forest is providing with things, which means they might get some stuff that is not necessarily totally legal or easy to get on a planet like this one, where the law level is fairly high. So there's lots of stuff that's illegal, right? So I think that that is how the deal ends up working, right? So we're trying to negotiate a good deal. We in fact did, right? So we got recruited by a rogue, and he will. It is Forest will provide the necessary equipment. So I'm going to call that a success. So check mark here to indicate success in scene 5. And that, my friends, is that. So let's see what happens. In terms of time, I think this negotiation all wraps up around 11 o'clock p.m. What I'm imagining is going to happen now, by the rules um, of Cepheus, fatigue starts kicking in if you don't get 8 hours of sleep over a 24-hour period. Now, personally, I live with less 8 hours of sleep all the time. And trust me, fatigue does set in, it turns out. That's a real thing. Um, so, what I'm thinking is going to be happening is that they're going to go back to their hotel room. They're going to get a good night's rest, as is Forrest, wherever he sleeps. They're going to go and sleep as well. So, everybody sleeps. Tuesday, I imagine they have plans to meet up. I think around like early evening. So I'm thinking like 7 o'clock or something like that. So we're gonna fast forward here to Tuesday, 7 p.m. Right, with equipment being given right, to our party, and that is that. So thank you very much for watching. This is Prof E signing off.